Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Political Standpoint. As we approach the 2023 elections, we're putting all candidates to test, whether at the local or the federal level. And we still have with us the presidential candidate of the Accord Party, Professor Chris Imumolen. Good to have, thanks for staying with us, rather. You started talking on the economy just before we took that break. You talked about the digital economy, and I will get to that in just a moment. But I'm sure you've been following reports from the Minister of Finance and just the federal government in terms of where our economy is today. And one of the things that we've heard is just outright that we are broke. It was said clearly that the economy is broke. There is nothing, it was just put out there. And so if you become president, you're going to inherit an economy that is broke. So I'm going to ask you, how do you fix an economy that is broke?
Okay, before I go into that question, I think we are in the present situation because of how reckless the present administration has been running the Nigerian economy. And that is why today we have more debt profile, we have more debt to pay than even our revenue. The president we need, which I will be providing, is one that is innovative, one that have the knowledge and the connection to bring back Nigeria into wealth without stressing Nigeria. Other candidates, what they want to do is by increasing hardship on Nigeria, overtaxing Nigeria, increasing the tax window. We don't need a president who's going to do that now. Nigerians are overstressed. What we'll be doing is what we've already started doing. Number one, we have a very bad business policy in Nigeria. Our business, policies to attract investors, the Nigeria by itself, the Nigerian country has a lot of challenge. How do we have a country of about 200 million population and we are not able to invest that number? Countries like West India, countries like China and the rest of them understand the impact of having huge population to market itself. We have a lot of investors who today are no longer in Nigeria. Many investors who want to invest in Nigeria are the shores of Nigeria, looking at the Nigerian market, knowing that Nigeria has a very good market, but we have very bad policies. So we need to rejig our business policies to attract investors.
What are some of those policies that you will rejig?
Okay, let's look at the power sector, for example. The challenge we have in the Nigerian power sector is the stiff policy framework that does not allow friendly investment into the power sector in Nigeria. We cannot monopolize sectors in Nigeria if we want to develop our country. We need to open it up for Nigerians who want to invest, first our investor, then international players to come in. Our country should be an open field for investors to come in. We are going to be doing that. As we speak now, we have so many organizations who want to come into Nigeria, not even to borrow, to invest through BPP, PPP, and BOT. But the kind of politics we run in Nigeria, as a politics where politicians will prefer to borrow, take the money, not use the project, and keep Nigeria indebted. We are not going to be borrowing. We know how we are going to run Nigeria. We have more than 4,000 plus mineral resources in Nigeria, yet unexplored. Every state has its endowment, but we have a country where everybody is looking at the oil and gas. Nobody's looking at other resources that we have that can spring Nigeria on board. We know that. We understand that. You see some Chinese guys in some villages in Ogbomoso, exploiting Nigerian minerals. Why? Because they've been able to use digital technology interpretation to know what we have. What's our government doing? So we need a leader who can prosper Nigeria without necessarily increasing the burden on Nigeria for the next administration. And that is what we offer. That is what we have. We have that understanding, and we're going to be doing. We have over 556,000 abandoned projects. How do we convert our nation from a consumption country to a productive country if we do not have a steel generating capacity? We have a
but let me ask you, because again, sorry to interrupt you. I interrupted because you're starting to sound like some politicians we've heard over and over again, where they say this is what we need to do, and I will do that when I get to office. And when I get to office, nothing is done. What would be the first, if you become the president, what would be the very first decision you would take in terms of the economy?
Is digitalization of the economy. We are going to start massive digitalization of every activity we do in Nigeria, massively, because that alone will solve 60% of our problem. You can see how relaxed our civil servants are. We don't have that culture to wanting to. We do have, but the system by itself do not allow us to bring out the best we are. So the system by itself needs to be rejigged. Every Nigeria will come on their toes to get things done. I'm not just saying it. See, I am not just those politicians who will say things and not do it. You check my past record. Check what you have been doing. That the secret of a great man lies in his daily routine. You check what he has been doing. Is he a man of his word? Has he used, what does he represent? If at my age, 39, I can own 3 universities across the world, if I've done what I've done with the harsh economic challenges that we have in Nigeria, I was born and bred here before I started expanding all over the world, that tells you that I'm a young, prosperous Nigerian who will bring the change in Nigeria. I will not just say it, I will get it done. We need a passionate Nigeria. I've been so passionate about our country. That is why I've done so many things I've done. My name is in the World Book of Greatness because I'm one of the very few black men who has empowered the black continent so much. With my personal fund, that is passion. The leader we need now is a leader that has passion for his people. That is what we need, and that is what I'll bring in. So we are going to be digitalizing the economy. How do we have a country where a foreigner can pick a passport without query? That tells you how bad, how porous. Can you go to, I don't want to start mentioning country names. Do you know the system of picking even an NIM card in countries like UAE to get the card? A foreigner can just come and get an NIM card. That tells you that we don't have a system in Nigeria.
I'm not sure the Immigration Service will agree with you that foreigners can pick passport without query. I'm sure they will tell you that they have a system in place to ensure that everyone who is picking the passport is well scrutinized.
Well, what is the system? Have you not picked the passport? You go to passport office, you fill a form, and they snap you. What do they do? Is there any background check? We don't have a system. Nigerians need to be database. We need to identify every Nigeria with a number. We need to know the number we are. We need to know who we are, our demography. If we must fix Nigeria first, we must have data. We live in a country that has no data. Yes, that is my first, because that alone will solve corruption. That alone will solve insecurity to a large extent. I'm not just saying that is what I'm going to do alone, but it's the major challenge to have a country with law and order. A country that we don't have that. We don't have
but
that.
let me, because I don't want to lose, there's something you said earlier, I don't want to lose that line of thought. You talked about not putting the burden on Nigerians in terms of taxation. Some people say that we are the least taxed country in the world. When you check countries like the US and even the UK that live on taxes, and that we don't even pay as much tax as they do, so that we need to be even taxed more. But you are saying that you don't think that Nigerians should bear the burden. Right now, we're borrowing to fund our budget. You are saying that the revenue majorly comes from tax levies, the ports, and all of that. Where will you then find the money to fund the budget if you're not going to tax Nigerians, if you're not going to borrow? How do you fund the budget? And how do you then pay off the debt that we currently owe?
Number one, we have a lot of mineral resources, gold, diamond, a lot of mineral resources that we are not, it's in the hands of illegal miners. We must control that itself. Two, we have a lot of windows that allow much, even the little tax we collect is not coming to the pocket of the government. I can tell you that. So we are going to cover every loophole through a system. Remember, a system that will ensure that Nigeria sees everything that is gotten and it's transparent to its people. The tax we are collecting in Nigeria alone is enough. Okay, let me tell you. Look at the tariff that is charged on electricity. Every year we talk about investing 100 billion plus in having more power plants. What about the tariff that Nigeria pay? Nigeria generates about $3.something billion annually on tariffs paid on electricity, even for light you don't have. What happened to it? Nobody's talking about it. Where is it going to? So we must capture what we are collecting. Believe me, if we adequately capture what we are collecting without increasing the burden, that can do so much for Nigeria.
All right, well said. But let me take you now to education, because I know that's your turf. And you have said that you are going to fix the ASU problem in 6 months.
Yeah.
If you become president, which means that if in May you win the election, you will have resolved any form of crisis in the education sector by November.
Yeah.
These promises have been made over and over again, even for other sectors, where people say, if I run in 3 months' time, this problem will no longer exist. And then they get into office, it exists even and become even bigger for the number of years they're in office. What are you bringing on board that is different from what we're currently seeing that will resolve the ASU crisis in 6 months?
Value. I have value for Nigerians. I have value for education. That is why privately I've been able to give over 500,000 Nigerians scholarship to study. I understand the importance of educating Nigeria on Nigerians' development itself. If Nigerians are not developed, if our human resources is squashed, then we don't have a country. The biggest resources a country can have is its human resources. I understand that. I understand this so well. And solving the education problem is not rocket science. It's just understanding that we need to ensure that Nigerians should be educated to have global competitive advantage. How do we? By now, we should have Nigeria going to space. By now, we should have Nigeria thinking about artificial intelligence, robotic engineering. We should have our own hardware, software, like Facebook, owned by Nigeria, all over everywhere. We have Nigerians doing greatly, but not in Nigeria. Outside, we have a guy called, we have a big Whaley and the rest of them. We have Oopstop built by Nigeria, sold to Apple for about $1 billion. Nigerians are doing, our youth are one of the most tenacious, great, but we need to encourage them by ensuring that we fix our educational problem. When we talk about education, we talk about the formal education, not just the university. I'm going to fix that. 6 months is even too much.
And I'm getting, but I will let you continue with education, but I want to stay on ASU, which is also part of education, because you're talking about the value of education, which is correct, and human capacity development, which is also correct. But the problem of ASU has nothing to do with sending Nigerians to space. It's really more about the payment platform. They do not want to be paid on IPPIS. They want to be paid on UTAS.
Yeah.
They also are saying, look, the arrears and backlogs, which is amounted to about a trillion naira thereabouts, we want to be paid. And on the table now is the months that they didn't work, government say we're not going to pay you, but they also want to be paid. So how do you resolve, because it's really about funding and then payment platform. How do you find the 1 trillion naira? Because as you're saying, they're not going back on that, to pay ASU and ensure that going forward, you do not owe the university lecturers.
Can we begin to consider Nigerians as our children? Can we begin to look at these students as our children? Imagine you see them as your children and you have the fund. Won't you prioritize education? Education should be one of our priority. Yes, the UNESCO guidelines states every country should, at least minimum, has about 10% of its budget focused on education. We still budget less than 6%. Even the 6%, corruption has eaten it to a point that I don't think even 1% is used for improving education. If we provide us what they need, what is it for? Is it not to improve the life of Nigerians who become the future leaders to set our country to where it ought to be? We need to know what. If a man does not know the need of what he's doing, abuse becomes inevitable. That is the problem we are in now. ASU should be funded. Yes, they are not asking for 1 trillion.
So you would give ASU 1 trillion naira at the expense of other projects. But you are saying that the federal government should see these children or the students as their children. Shouldn't ASU also get to the point where they compromise and say, okay, this is what we can take and this is what we cannot take, just because we also see these students as our children? Shouldn't both sides be making compromise?
No, government and the presidency is the father of all. It's not. Both ASU and the student, they are on in the same circle. Government is the father of all. Government should play a fatherly role now. See, ASU is not asking for this money once. Let me talk about the UTAS and the IPPS. See, I'm a very frank person, and if we must move this country forward, we need to start speaking at the truth. How do we have a system built to pay salary, and someone somewhere is debiting people's salary? You saw what happened to the accountant general. People debiting people's money. On people are working, and some people are making money through a system over people. Even those people should be punished immediately because these are people's sweat. If we must build this country, like I said, we need a passionate leader that have blood flowing in his vein, who see Nigeria as his brother, as his sisters, and his brother. If ASU is not asking for 1 trillion at a go, if ASU go on strike, yes, they should be paid. Why? Because they have children. They have to. That is it. What even the government that don't want to pay? How often do they go to sit-in? They receive sit allowance. We must begin to prioritize. Education should be part of our priority. When you say, do we give 1 trillion in expense of other? Which other sector? Education should be part of our priority. In the scale of preference of what to do, education should be number 1 or number 2. Because it's about the future of this country. If we don't educate Nigerians, this country will not be a country. Nigerians will not have the mental tenacity to understand the right thing to do. They will not, because education is about building the mind of people. If you don't build their mind, you breed monkeys. And we don't have monkeys to lead us. The education should be, so we should give them. But what we need to do now, see them, okay, we are going to give. We should even give more. Yes. I run education. I've run education for the past 21 years. And what you must do is education is about funding. And when you fund education, you have quality. Nigerians will become quality people. You have quality leaders. Nigerians will understand how best to choose leaders. Today, give money to people. They just say, okay, yes. Because our education have problem. We have a serious problem. For me, I prioritize education, security, economy, digitalization, and the rest of them as major part of what we'll be doing. We are going to give our soup, but we'll sit with them, look at what is available, and we'll start providing them sincerely. It's about the future. See, when there is a break in education, it's like someone who is sick, who has been prescribed by a doctor to take a particular dose of medication, and he stopped taking it. When the sickness comes back or the illness, you need to start all over again. These children, by the time they resume after 1 year, those in 400 level would have forgotten what they were taught from 100 level to 4. So they would just rush them, quack, and they produce them out. These are people that are supposed to take Nigeria to the next level. We are going to have challenges if we don't have leaders who understand deeply what education is.
And you don't think that the current administration understands education?
They don't understand it. They don't. If they do understand it, they will not treat it this way. They don't understand it. If they do understand it, we're talking about insecurity. Yet you are allowing over 4 million Nigerians in tertiary education stay at home without doing anything. You are also creating more problems to the insecurity we have. They need to have. And understanding is by application. That is knowledge. Apply it. We've heard words, people saying parents should sue us. We shouldn't be. We must have responsible leaders. So once you are given, the position of a presidency is a position that determines life or death of the people. A decision that is made by president can either set Nigeria back to 100 years or set it ahead of 100 years. The man that becomes your president should be carefully selected. I plead with Nigerians, look at the CVs of those who are going to lead us. I'm one of them. I'm sound, I'm young, I'm progressive, and I'm articulate. We must begin to hand over this country to the right hands. If Obama at 42 or 44 could become the president of America, a country that has over times 500 of the economy of Nigeria, and he did well according to a lot of people's judgment. I am 39, and we've had head of states in Nigeria who are even far younger than myself. General Gowon was head of state at 32. He was even a bachelor. They did well. I'm going to deliver Nigeria to at least a destination of prosperity.
Let me stay on education, because you also talked about the 20% of the budget goes to education. I don't know how large you want the budget to be. Currently, it's in trillions of naira, but when you give 20% to 10%, okay, what I read was 20% somewhere, okay. But you are saying 10.
I said the UNESCO guideline says every country must at least budget 10% of its.
No, but yeah. I read somewhere that you had made a statement that you're going to give 20% of funding in the budget to education. I want to be sure that that's correct.
Yeah, you are correct.
You said 20%. Yeah. So if you're giving 20% to education, wouldn't that be at the expense of other sectors? And then how do you ensure that a sector like health, a sector like transportation, a sector like security do not suffer because you're funding education, which of course I understand is important?
Yeah, it's not really about like I said to you, control is key. Ensuring that we ensure that all that we are doing is transparently seen. And imagine a government where every Nigerian could see the data of the crude oil that is sold every day and what is remitted to FAC and the rest of them. That is how transparent we want to run our system. And education would help. I so much believe. And it doesn't impact. What we are currently spending on security is not impacting on security. We don't even need to spend what we are spending on security. For example, look at the amount of, we are spending as if we are in a war, and we're not seeing the impact.
Are we not in a war?
We are.
Because some security experts say that Nigerians are at war with these terrorists.
Yeah, that statement means that some part of the country has been captured. What I mean captured is not in terms of territory. It's a free for all for security. We have some part of the country, like in Zamfara, for example. My vice president is the former SSG of Zamfara State government, and I have first-hand information of how bandits have been operating there. In Zamfara, schools have been shut down for the past 2 years in the states. In Nigeria, what would happen to those children? In Abuja, schools have been shut down. That is what we call war, because if an activity and the economic activity of the state has been impeded because of security, we can as well say, and there's a war. Yes, we need, but mine is not just about the budget, it's about ensuring that what is budgeted is used. And that can only happen through thorough monitoring and thorough supervision. And that can be done through a president who has passion, who can work everywhere, who can ensure that things are done, who can prosecute, who can empower the judiciary system to ensure that those who default are prosecuted without any interference. We must have a country with rule of law, with order. It's very, very important for me. So 20% of education for me is key. Yes, 20% of education, because for me education is the human being. The human resources controls every resources. If Nigerians are not trained, are not built to understand how to, then our future is at jeopardy. So for me, it's key. I have a lot of justification for that, and that is what we are going to be doing. And again, I think let me just stop at that.
So let me come to, you mentioned something earlier. You talked about how you're a young person and the leaders we had earlier were young. We had different candidates in this race. One of the youngest of them would be a Peter Obi. And so tell me, because again, he's young, but that's not the reason for, a lot of people would say age is not the reason for support. Experience also matters. And if you look at the candidates on the field, most of them have vast experience. So what are you bringing to the table that sort of trumps what these other candidates, especially someone like a Peter Obi, who is also equally young, is bringing to the table? What do you have over a candidate like that should make Nigerians look at you and not them?
Okay, one is that most of the things that you see people talk about me, the humanitarian work I've done, Nigerians just need to check them. I have done them privately with my personal funds, with or without politics. Most of the things they've done were done with government funds. And some of them, what I've done privately is even far more than what they've done with government funds. I'm not mentioning name. I'm talking generally now. One, I've demonstrated passion, true passion for Nigeria. We need experienced leaders, have experience, but what we need more is progressive experience. But more importantly is a passionate leader. Because an experienced leader who is not passionate would not. What we have is we have so many experienced ones. What have they even done with experience? For many of them who might be coming back. Yes, but what we are now is a passionate leader. I've demonstrated that as a person. Then number two, I am the youngest in this race. You might call some other candidates young, but I'm the youngest in this race. I'm the only youth in this race. And Nigerians must begin to look at our CVs. Very important. I think there's a whole lot of work, even for Nigerians, to do.
And you think that you have a better CV than that someone like a Peter Obi, an Atiku, or an Asiwaju Tinubu?
I don't want to be concerned about, I'm concerned about my CV.
You talked about that Nigerians should focus on CV, and I just want to ask you if you think that you have a better CV, because if we're looking at CVs, some would say, again, back to what they have done, that some of them have been at the presidential level, some of them have been at the state level as governors, and that perhaps they have managed the economy of this country to an extent. And so when it comes to CV, they have works that we can all verify. But that, yes, you have done humanitarian work, but those were private. And so it is not as big as handling, and I'm not trying to say, just hold on, I'm not trying to say what you're doing isn't valuable, but I'm just saying you might not be able to equate that with dealing with the economy of a state or of a country. And so do you think that you have a better CV than this candidate?
See, have you seen many of these governors, presidents? They don't do anything. See, having a title does not correspond with experience. Have you seen, I have friends who are senators, they only go to the chamber, they go home, they don't do anything. If there is no problem in Nigeria today, why are we talking about problem? If their experience has helped us, then I should be resting, facing my business. Experience this. I've seen people who worked as senator for 4 years, and they come back, I relate with them. They don't have the quarter experience I have when it comes to national development. So they only go, what is the experience in they go and discuss about? Experience to me should be about moving the country forward, and everybody should see it. We are in a mess, and this mess we are in is not just this present administration. It's a collective lackadaisical attitude of various sectors in Nigeria.
And how would you bring, because I have a few minutes left, I want to touch on the health sector. What sort of experience would you bring to the health sector? We see doctors. The last time I went to the hospital, what I saw was I saw student doctors, and they've been the one attending to me for a while, and because doctors are leaving the country in droves. And we've seen strike in the health sector. We've seen how the infrastructure within that sector also is dilapidated. So what are you going to do in the health sector to ensure that we have a thriving health sector?
You know, when I said I was going to budget 20% to education, many persons don't know that education by itself is the mother that springboard into every sector. We cannot have doctors, good engineers, because Nigerians are the one to fix Nigeria first. Even if you are going to have expatriates, they work for Nigerians. And if our educational sector is not fixed, our human capacity would be nothing. So first, education for me, I know why, because I know the roots.
I don't disagree with you on that level. But sorry, just a minute. But because that in itself would take time to reflect on the health sector. It is not something that you do and then there's impact all of a sudden. But what's the first decision you would take concerning the health sector?
Yeah, it's not going to take time. You can have doctors trained, professional doctors trained in 8 months. It's just, there's something called retraining and overtraining. Yes, you can be trained and become very good at having, as we do professional programs, and within 3 months, 4 months, you keep doing the training. It's not a long program, I understand it clearly. One, our health sector needs serious funding also. We must look at the previous administration had promised that government officials who patronize Nigerian medical sector. We have investors who will be coming into Nigeria to ensure, one of the things we're going to be doing is to ensure that the government hospitals are, one, seriously funded to meet up with international best practices, and two, to ensure that we set up in the 6th geopolitical zone in Nigeria as a medical facilities that could take care of Nigerians. And again, for me, I believe that Nigeria is still a state whereby we must still subsidize healthcare services for Nigeria. So we are going to be subsidizing the healthcare facility. We have the insurance scheme for Nigeria. How many Nigerians are aware of that? How effective it is? We will be doing that. We are going to be subsidizing education, we are going to be subsidizing food, and we're going to subsidize healthcare.